Tim Holgate is within touching distance of a series title for the first time in his 16 Street Racing League career. Coverage from Sonoma, wine country, California is next here on RaceSpotTV. Just 2 rounds to go in the 16 Street Racing League, where Tim Holgate is within touching distance of a series title. However, it is down to Brendan Lichtenberg to try and make the difference here today in Wine County, Sonoma. Think outside the oval as we welcome you to coverage of the penultimate round of the 16 Street Racing League. Wilmington along with Aaron Likens, Rachel Whiteford and Cam Walsh here. And, well, we're into the back end of the season, Aaron. Just a couple of rounds remaining as qualifying just about complete. These drivers, small field here today, taking on a very tough road course.
A very tough road course indeed, and right now it doesn't look like Holgate's going to be in tonight's race, which is going to allow Brendan Lichtenberg a chance to gain some points. Of course, he is going to have some stiff competition, and with this track, you do not want to make a mistake. Very easy to ruin your race here. Turn 2's tricky, the carousel's tricky. Very easy to end your race on a very minor mistake.
Yep, so then let's have a look as drivers working themselves onto the racetrack. Qualifying is underway right about now to Ronald on board with Rob Ungerlinks coming out of pit road in that number 20 machine. Drivers are going to have themselves a total of 3 laps to go as fast as they possibly can. And well, Rachel, this track, it's got a lot of twists, a lot of turns, and the Americans don't know how to use corner numbers here properly.
They do not indeed. Well, good evening. Sonoma, well, it's famous for, let's be fair, lots of turn 2 crashes, of course, at the start of the races, and it's certainly probably one of the tougher courses, and most, in my opinion, botched.
Yeah, as you see there, Ungerlinks working himself down on the back end of the racetrack. One driver who we'll have to pay attention to is this one. It's Brendan Lichtenberg. And, well, he was pretty fast in qualifying, Cam, but he needs to get himself a win. Anything else, as far as I'm aware, won't be good enough for him.
Yes, and this is definitely not a track for Brendan Lichtenberg to get a win on. He is going to have some very stiff competition, but Brendan has been working all season long on these road courses, and we'll see what can happen. Sonoma always can throw a wrench into the system here, so we'll see who can come out on top at this sandy, tricky, unforgiving racetrack.
Yep, so let's ride a lap on board then with Brendan Lichtenberg. He works himself down into top of the hill. See, rocking himself onto a lap, and he's just been there about 120 kilometers an hour on the exit of turn 2, now down into 3A, and 3B, uphill chicane-ish area. Then you work yourself back down the hill. This is where things get incredibly difficult. You've got to be careful as you work yourself in an off-camber corner into another off-camber corner as you now come down to 180-degree left-hander. And from here on, well, Aaron, it's all going to be about precision the second you hit your next braking zone.
Yeah, you gotta nail this braking zone. It leads on to a very long throttle, and there's so many different lines you can take into this corner, but the key thing is to get a clean launch off, and once you commit to the power, you gotta put it down. So easy to get wheel spin, and if you have to lift, you're gonna screw up this entire next session. Gotta be careful not to get tight over the hill, and getting through the chicane, very important.
Now, coming into this event, Tim Holgate had an advantage of 145 points. There is going to be 50 points plus bonus points eligible for this race, and then there will be 100 points plus bonus points eligible at that track that we know as Auto Club Speedway. Lichtenberg comes across the start-finish line. They see qualifying time up on your screen. It's currently Karzeski from Lichtenberg, Krosno in that third position, and, well, to start it off, Aaron, if you're Lichtenberg, you need to get pole position, but right now, he is well back from the rear of Karzeski's Warner. What a lap by him, 116.943.
I hate to say it, but right now it does not look promising. If he were within a couple tenths, as he drops another position as Michel De Jong, a 116.1, 8 tenths faster than any other driver. But if this were an oval wheel, we could say Lichtenberg just needs to be aggressive and force his way through the field. But this is not exactly a track to be aggressive and to try to force anything.
We had a moment ago, Andres Warner being the first driver into the 1 minute 16s, and then Rachel de Jong, 116.125. Now, he has botched this up a little bit, but if Warner can respond, there's really two drivers who are at command of the field right now. Karzeski, Davis, Miller, Lichtenberg, pretty close in that mid-pack right now. Joe Brown's not doing too badly as well. He's in P7.
Well, they're absolutely right, Will. This is probably one of the tougher road courses that I think that exist. It's very unnatural with some of its corners, and of course, Werner and de Jong, both road course experts, they're showing this field exactly how to do this. I do think, though, that with de Jong's speed, whether that's going to translate to his actual race pace or not, it's certainly a 2-horse race, potentially a 1-horse race, Will.
Yeah, as we can see there, again, for de Jong, if he wins, well, it's all game over for the championship. Even if Tim Holgate doesn't participate in today's event, then he will still be the champion. De Jong then, in 1 minute 16.125, his fastest lap so far. Warner improves. He's still in second place, however, as you see, now he's on pit road. Lichtenberg is still on track. He is down in P number 6, and Cam, but this is going to have to be a blistering lap by Lichtenberg, but it looks as though he's not going to go any further. That is it for him as Warner's on pit road. De Jong is still circulating on the racetrack.
Yes, De Jong being on the track right now, I think he might be trying to break his own lap, but right now he has pole. It just seems to me that, yep, Andres Werner's off, so Michael De Jong going to be starting on the front unless something dramatic happens here, as he just goes through one more lap and he's already bugged out. So the field is all but set here at Sonoma, and it looks like we're going to be set for quite a hectic race here at quite a nasty little track with a couple little surprises.
Oh, it is going to be an interesting race, to say the least. And this is one, Aaron, that we know is always going to be about attrition.
Attrition, whether it's at the start of the race or in real life. We've seen incidents before the green flag here. So this track is just treacherous all over the place, and, well, key thing for these drivers, navigating turns 1 and 2 in the carousel on lap 1. So easy to get in trouble, and if you're starting at the rear of the pack and there's trouble in front, well, we got some blind hills here. If there's trouble in front, there can be trouble, and you won't know it till it's too late.
Currently 13 drivers have set themselves qualifying time, running along board with Dave Jinks in that 12th position as he works himself down into this very difficult chicane section of the racetrack, and after here, flat out onto the gas in the second to last corner as you work yourself down into that final turn. Right now you can see many different configurations here at Sonoma Raceway. We're running on the IRL, well, the Indy Racing League layout, call it what you will. recently configured, of course, once again. And this track has been home to IndyCar racing for quite some years now, as at one point it was known as Infineon Raceway. Before that, it was known as Sears Point Raceway, now simply just known as Sonoma Raceway. Think outside the ovals. Christopher Block is the only driver now stored on the racetrack in that number 33 car as he heads himself down into turn number 7 for what is his final lap in qualification, actually. And he is a little bit far off the pace right now. You can see 5 seconds the gap between himself. Dave Jinks and Randy Cosno are both quite off the pace here today. And it's a little bit surprising, actually, to see Cosno so far off. We'll talk about that one as far as the race goes. Long as Christopher Block just going to work himself then towards the final couple of corners. You have got Eric Davis on the racetrack as well, but he won't get himself another lap in before qualifying is complete, as Block having himself an incident there, putting it hard into the wall. So his qualifying is done. Eric Davis, the last person out on the racetrack, and, well, any moment now, qualifying will be scored complete. That gives us the opportunity to run through your starting grid for today's event. And on pole position, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be Michael de Jong. Qualifying time of a 1 minute 16.125, claiming pole position. Andres Warner lines up alongside him on that front row of the grid, with Brian Karzeski on the inside of row number 2 and Eric Davis in the 4th position. Heading on back to row number 3, it is Tim Miller on the inside, and then Brendan Lichtenberg on the outside. Of course, Lichtenberg, the only driver who can take that championship away from Tim Holgate. Although it does look at this, it stands right now, he's going to have a lot of luck going his way to even take it to the final round of the championship. Joe Branch on the inside of row number 4, and then you got yourself Rob Ungerlings on the outside, with Terry Tinston on the inside of row number 5, John Porzak lining up alongside of him. Then you got Randy Cosno in P11, Dave Jinks in the 12th position. There you can see Christopher Block and Chuck Eisenberg running out a very small 14-car field here today on RaceSpotTV for the Grand Prix of Sonoma. We'll step aside, we'll be back for the start after these messages.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race. so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
The NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing.com has officially begun. It's all in control of Brad Davies in that 11 machine. Green flag flies. He's damn near banged up though. Now the 93 is going to push the 4 of Brian Day all the way up the wall. 4 wide down the super stretch point in the turn. And now the 93-39, the 3 machine goes around. Big trouble in the back. The race to the win up front.
Look behind him. They're 3 and 4 wide, trying to make a push to the front as the field gains speed in turn number 1. Kenny Humphrey, if he can rip it back to the start-finish line, will win here at Daytona.
7 laps to go.
Oh,
As you love it,
here we go.
You love it. The 1 gets around, the 5 gets around. Big choke.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Pace lap currently underway then here for the penultimate round of the 16 Street Racing League here on RaceSpotTV. And Michael de Jong will be starting today's event on pole position as we have a look then at that car that you can see working himself behind the iRacing.com first safety car right now. And you can see just behind him, there you are, is Andreas Warner. Is at any moment now, Rachel, line up alongside him.
He will indeed, as they approach, of course, one of the more interesting sections of the course to get through under safety car. They'll be going too wide for the start well, and it's going to be an interesting run up through turn 1 and turn 2. Of course, de Jong's going to have that inside line for turn 1. He's going to have to make a very early break to get the inside for turn 2, or Werner will have him.
So then the pace car any moment now is going to head straight on, putting that field in the command of Mitchell de Jong for the penultimate round of the championship. Here you can see field getting themselves too wide. The penultimate round of the championship here on RaceSpotTV starts right now, and they're going 3 wide already. As you can see, Lichtenberg trying to make himself a 3 wide move, wasn't able to do so. Cars storming themselves up the hill for the first time, looking so everyone is going to get through without real incident. As you can see then, working themselves down into turn 3 for the first time, and Aaron, Lichtenberg thought about it.
He thought about it, and that's what he's going to have to do. We said he would have to be aggressive. Don't know if that move would have worked out in the end, but as it stands, he still has a car solid, so good for him. But that's what he has to do. He has to get positions early.
Well, we are having a think that he might have hit the wall, Rachel. We're going to get ourselves a replay up and have a look at this one. The field is all settled down for the time being. Although de Jong and Lichtenberg are actually going side by side. Something's happened to de Jong. We'll come back to that one in just one moment's time. But, Rachel, he was very close actually hitting the wall actually as he came under power. That's what put him into this 3 wide situation.
Yeah, absolutely. He got a really early jump there, Will, and I think that flag waving starter was a little keen actually at the beginning there, because he threw that green flag very, very early. Guys didn't seem to be prepared for that, and well, some jumped, some didn't.
Let's have a look then to see what happened to Mitchell de Jong. As you can see side by side, this was down at turn number 7. De Jong losing the race lead to Andreas Warner. Warner goes to the point, but then de Jong, well, Cam, he's now down into 2nd place on the racetrack. Side by side, Warner is your new race leader.
Yes, he is, and just like that, going through that tight little second carousel chicane after the end of the drag strip there, Andreas Werner making a very simple pass on Michael de Jong. Now, it's all going to be on race pace. We can qualify fast, but Andreas Werner is running very similar times. They were only split by some 0.5 of a second in qualifying. Let's see what they can do on the race pace as Andreas Werner is trying to pull away and already has over a 0.5 second gap, Will.
Yeah, that gap actually is about 0.9 of a second as they're completing themselves 1.5 laps now of today's event. And there is a look then from the behind of your race leader, Andreas Warner, who's worked himself through this S section of the racetrack. Once again, we have had all your drivers get through the first couple of laps without real internet. At the rear of the field is Chuck Eisenberg, who is already 19 seconds behind your race leader. There you are. Looks as though, Rachel, he is one driver who's just trying to get himself some points, get himself locked into the top 25 for next season.
He is indeed. Himself, Christopher Block and Dave Jinkswell are all drifting back somewhat. These guys, of course, in it for the championship, and some of them are more road experts, some of them more oval expert, and guys we normally see really at the front on the oval side can end up falling back quite heavily. Of course, Paulzak and Mathinson, names we normally see at the front on the ovals, they are towards the back of this pack wheel. So it's definitely not necessarily the nicest road course for the oval guys, but the road course guys aren't big fans of it either.
Riding back on board of De Jong, he's had himself a much better lap. That gap is back down to 3 tenths per second as they work themselves down towards that hairpin once again. He's behind. You've got side-by-side racing with Tim Miller and Brendan Lichtenberg, and Miller is just going to have to fall back in behind as they work themselves on the exit, and they're going to be side-by-side now. Joe Branch, Tim Miller, they're going to try and go side-by-side.
Collision with the leaders!
Contact to the front!
Let's get a look at that one then. And Andreas Warner,
damaged.
there we can see him, the number 08 car of Andreas Warner, down now in the 4th place. Let's get ourselves another look, figure out what happened to Andreas Warner as he was leading the race. There was an incident between himself and Mitchell De Jong. We have a look, we'll try and slow it down for you. This would have been down towards turn 7A, and it looks as though, well, De Jong just made a late move down to the inside. Oh no, then Warner lost it all by himself there, Aaron.
Yeah, a clever move by De Jong to take an alternate line into that, which Werner's
round. De Jong's gone round. He spun it. He had damage from that initial contact, guys. Sorry to stop you there. He's looped it coming out of turn 2. He's only stopped like the entire field through.
Yep, so there you can see there. First of all, Andreas Warner, you can see the incident that happened to him. We'll now stick with this replay. We'll show you what happened to Mikel De Jong. He had himself some damage with that contact with Andreas Warner. That meant that he then ended himself into another incident. Mikel De Jong now down into the 11th place on the racetrack, and of course this racetrack is so dependent on having yourself good aerodynamic grip, good mechanical grip. Mikel De Jong, his race, from after leading this race, you see looping there at turn number 2, and from then it is all downhill, letting that entire field pretty much go past him. We'll get ourselves one more look at the initial incident as they work themselves, you see, down in towards the hairpin, and well, it was actually De Jong there, just getting himself alongside Warner. You can see right about now, just Andreas Warner coming across
round
that
again,
car
a third
of
time.
De Jong, and De Jong is now stopped on the racetrack, Rachel.
Yes, he is indeed, Will. He's looped it coming out of the S's section, running down to the chicane. He tried to actually pass, I believe that was Rob Underling's Will, going through the carousel. He was very loose around the outside, had to give that up, but he passed him back at the hairpin, the chicane. He's just, that car is damaged at the front. He has front left suspension damage. The car is evil and he's doing his best. I think he's retiring because he's into the pits.
Yeah, Mikel De Jong is onto pit road, and that means your new race leader, Aaron, is going to be Eric Davis in that number 65 car.
Indeed it is, and Eric Davis came really close to winning at Iowa, lost it to Joe Branch, which, you know, he is going to fight hard for this win, but Werner is still in this race. His car, he is in 3rd. Going to try to make a move on Brian Karzeski to the inside in the hairpin, and he drives it very deep. Karzeski closes the door, can't get it done, but for Werner, I think that car is still capable of winning this race, but this incident very much reminds me of Sebring last season with Dennis Garis and Joshua Chin. Both of them had seconds on the field. It was going to be a 2-horse race, and just a slight slip by Chin cost both of those drivers that race at Sebring. So sort of reminiscent here, 2 drivers that were going to dominate. Not so.
Yeah, but Andreas Warner, you can see there, he's putting that pressure now on Brian Karzeski. He's trying to work himself back through the field. But you can see that Karzeski's got himself a 0.4 of a second advantage right now as we have a look at him coming down into turn number 1 and 2 once again. So Karzeski is now running in that 2nd spot. His last lap time of 120.224. However, he was, well, about 6 tenths of a second slower than that driver of Eric Davis and the number 65 Banshee Autosport car that last time by. Under pressure from Andreas Warner, and it does look as though, Cam, that car, that Tequila Patron car, is just somehow being able to continue driving.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it has much damage at all, possibly some of that side pod damage, but ultimately, Andreas Warner is willing that car onward as he goes onto the inside of turn number 7 into 7A. This is where he had an issue getting the power down before. Brian Krasweski, though, you're going to have to yield coming across that. You cannot go too wide, as both Michael Lejeune, who has retired now, and Andreas Warner found out. Now, Warner, he's going to have to try and build that gap and get as close as he can to Eric Davis, though, that neon green and black Tequila Patron IndyCar now in the mirror of Eric Davis as he enters the final corner number 12, which thankfully outcuts that very wide corner and gives us a nice, lovely straight up to turn number 1.
Yeah, there you can see then a replay of Andreas Warner getting that pass done down at turn number 7, moving himself back up into P2. But to talk about the one driver remaining in the championship hunt, Brendan Lichtenberg currently scored down in P number 4, Aaron, and well, he's a long way behind your leaders already. There you can see the gap, 6.1 seconds with 6 laps of racing scored complete.
Yeah, he's running 4th, 3rd quickest car on the track as of right now, but 3rd is not going to cut it. And if you're Lichtenberg, you're just hoping that the 3 drivers in front of you make some unforced errors, maybe go to the spin cycle a couple times, but right now Lichtenberg's pace is not going to be enough to win this race. He is going to need a little, if not a lot of help to have a chance at this win.
Sorry, you go.
No. I was just, I'm having a thought here. Now, we have these very fast leaders coming through. The last car on the grid right now is 46 seconds behind. So that's Chuck Eisenbarth. What's going to happen when these guys start coming through the field? Of course, Brandon Lichtenberg might just, through some luck, be able to find some more points if there's just a couple of miscommunications between the back markers and our leaders, which they will be joining fairly soon.
Tim Miller down in the 7th place right now, and well, he was running it wrong Joe Branch a little bit earlier on. There you can see the graphic on your screen. He's down 2 positions from where he qualified, Rachel, and he's now falling behind Rob Ungerlinks, although it is a very close 3-horse train for P5, P6, P7. That one is between Joe Branch, Rob Ungerlinks, and Tim Miller.
It is indeed. Well, this is the mid-pack battle of this race, and these guys definitely more oval specialists than road, but they have a pretty good fight going on at this time. Branch, Unlinks, and Miller pretty much nose to tail here. They are definitely going to be one of the ones to watch in this race, because at the front, Werner's catching Davis, and nothing much happening elsewhere.
Yeah,
he has indeed.
As you can see there, we've got 2 things going on the racetrack simultaneously. As you can see there, Tim Miller getting himself past Rob Ungerlinks. In the interim, Andreas Warner going back to the point. We'll get ourselves another look at that one, Aaron, as he works himself past Eric Davis.
Yeah, this pass, either Eric Davis overcooked it into the carousel, or this was, I know you are much faster than me, take the lead. Not much of a fight put up by Eric Davis. I really think he did let him by in the carousel.
Yeah, there we can see. We'll get ourselves one more look at that one, Cam. Well, it did look as though he pushed wide, did Davis there?
Well, I was going to say, this carousel, you have to kind of take that line right, and he just took it way narrow in. And I think he probably went in a little too fast, having that car right behind him, and he ended up pushing wide. And once you're in that position, you're just going to yield that and let him go to try and get your start, so you don't lose too much going down that straight there. So got pushed in hard, and so now he's just going to try and see if he can't keep up. Already, though, Andreas Warner showing that car is not really damaged at all.
So then, after at one point falling down into the 4th position, Andreas Warner is once again your race leader. Your big story of the day, of course, is Mikel de Jong and Andres Warner making contact around this section of the racetrack. A couple of laps into the event as Warner just getting himself a little bit loose, and de Jong unfortunately is the one who suffered the most out of that one, as he had himself some suspension damage, a little bit of aero damage, looped the car a total of 3 times and is now classified as out of the race. But Andres Warner is back to the point in that Chiquita Patron car, but a car onto pit road. That is Chuck Eisenberg, who, well, he's already scored laps down, Rachel. It does look as though he is just trying to keep out of the way of your race leaders.
Well, I think he might be retiring, Will, because he's hopped out of that car, and I think he won't be returning unless he's gone to use the John. But that'll be our second retiree if that is the case. Certainly, driver did qualify in 14th and last place, Will. Probably not a big fan of the road courses here, but just been keeping an eye, of course, on that little mid-pack battle we had going, and it's very close now between Miller and Branch, with Miller chasing down Joe Branch for that 5th position. Well,
yeah, as you can see, Branch making himself a little bit of a mistake actually on the exit of turn number 5. That allowed Miller to close up, but the dirty air for Tim Miller meant that as Joe Branch almost going the wrong way down in towards turn number 7. Tim Miller, the dirty air really affecting him through the carousel, having to fall back in. Oh, Miller looping it around there as well. So Miller's now going to lose himself position. Not the first time Miller's made a mistake in this race. He does get it back around once again, but I don't know, it's just about to talk about the fact that these tyres can go off very quickly at this racetrack.
Oh, very quickly. You put a lot of strain on it with the elevation, and when you're behind a car, you're going to cook those tires a little bit more. But yeah, that was a quick spin, but a very impressive recovery by Tim Miller to spin that car right around. Only lost 1 position, and is maybe only lost about 7 or 8 seconds on Joe Branch. So if he can put together some really good laps, he may get back up there. So not a complete disaster, unfortunate spin, but a very good recovery.
Yeah, and you can see that pretty much just looping that car back around Rob Unglings, going past him. So Miller back down into the 7th spot after getting himself past Unglings just a couple of laps ago. To run through your top 5 right now then, it is Andreas leading the way. The gap between himself and Eric Davis is currently 3.8 seconds. Between Davis and Brian Karzeski, it's currently 3.2 seconds. And then a further 4.5 seconds back is Brendan Lichtenberg. Joe Branch rounding out your top 5 right now. We're going to step aside for just one moment, but we won't miss a thing as we take you side by side.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, The racing was fun, but there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as you ride along board with Rob Ungerlinks as he's working himself through turn number 1 and 2. And just behind, you got himself Terry Mattinson, John Paws at Clay are battling for P8, P9 on the racetrack here as well. It looks as though, Rachel, Mattinson just going to let his teammate go past him.
Yes, he has indeed, and well, John Bozak a little bit quicker it seems at this time, and team orders could well have been in effect there. Those guys not wanting to damage each other because, of course, they want those points for the team. Terry Mattinson, though, we know he's not quite as strong here, so Underlink Bozak, I should say, former SWC champion, definitely taking that position.
Mattinson just about spun it though, which allowed that pass. Mattinson actually had a great save not to take out his teammate. It's hard to get an IndyCar that sideways and not lose it. So that's turn 2, getting on the power at the wrong spot, right at the crest, sliding up the rear tires, getting sideways. Actually a great save by Mattinson.
Yeah, let's try and replay that one for you then, as we will be joined in just one moment's time by Mikel de Jong, who unfortunately is out of the race in the very early going here today. So you can see then Terry Mattinson, a big slide by him then through turn number 1 and 2. That is what actually allowed John Porter to get alongside and then to get past as they work themselves up the hill. Porter moving himself from that number 27 car up into now P number 8 on the racetrack. So we are joined by Mikel de Jong, and Mikel, unfortunately, your race is over just a little bit before you would want it to be, as well, you're going to be classified in the 14th and last place here today.
Yes, hello, Will. Yeah, unfortunately, bad luck for me. I just saw that, I didn't know what happened at the time, but I saw that Andreas spun it into me, apparently.
Yes, and of course, you just blitzed qualifying. And it looked as though it was going to be set up for a great race between yourself and Andreas. But just how hard is it on turn 7, especially on cold tyres, to just get that traction down on a track which has so many fast and slow corners?
Oh, it's incredibly hard. That's exactly why I lost the lead on the first lap. I was just, I was not aggressive enough into the corners, and Andreas was. So he took the lead from me, and I decided to just follow him. Try to follow him for a few laps, see what he does.
Well, sorry to stop you guys there, but Mattinson round.
Sorry.
And actually, we've got 2 drivers off as Dave Jinks is off the racetrack as well. But carry on, Mikel.
I'll carry on. And then he made a mistake going into the hairpin, and I saw a gap, and I was like, yeah, I'll go for that. And then suddenly, all hell broke loose, and my car was completely undrivable, so I just pulled it into the pits, and they didn't fix anything, so I'm out.
Well, one more round of the championship to go. Auto Club Speedway, you gonna run that one?
I will try. I mean, yeah, it's not a good time for us Euros, but I will certainly try to be there.
Well, unfortunately, Mikel de Jong down in the 14th place, getting ourselves a couple of replays. We saw the one with Dave Jinks. Terry Mattinson has also looped that car around. He has been struggling with it pretty much all day long, Aaron. He is now down in the 9th position on the racetrack.
When you abuse these tires, when you get them sideways, it's very hard to get them cooled down, and you start having to fight the car. You drive it a little bit harder, and the tires just keep heating up, and it is just going to amplify. Any minor mistake is quickly going to turn into a major mistake. So If he's in his fuel window right now for Mattinson, as much as he slid these tires, as soon as he can get off these tires, he is going to be one happy driver.
Having a look on board with Brendan Lichtenberg, gap to himself and Joe Branch down to 1.8 seconds. And actually, Cam, Joe Branch caught Lichtenberg last time by 7/10 of a second. The gap is currently 2.1 seconds. And, well, Lichtenberg's got to be careful, otherwise he might well actually be under threat for that 4th position before too long.
Yeah, so I was looking through the different lap times here. It's about 2 to 3 tenths of a second between Andreas Werner and Eric Davis per lap. Brian Koweski's kind of on an island, and then you've got Lichtenberg. And I saw that green car of Joe Branch coming in behind him, and I almost wonder he better be careful here, or else he's going to lose even more points. Obviously, 4th is not what he needs. 5th definitely not going to help. So he's going to have to really start lighting the tires on this DW12 if he wants to get away from Joe Branch, because Joe Branch is faster right now by quite a considerable margin.
And once again, Tim Miller is trying to get back the positions that he has lost, Rachel. And, well, Miller's been in 7th place 3 different times in this event now, as he's trying to catch up to the rear of Rob Ungerlinks, once again working himself down towards that final corner.
Yes, indeed, Will, and this is going to be an endurance race of a very different kind. Probably one of which driver can actually make it to the finish here. We've seen multiple drivers so far, and just in the last 5 minutes or so, near miss by Christopher Block and a huge wobble by Terry Mathinson. It's going to be a case of which drivers actually can finish here, and of course, this does count for the same points as any other race in the season. So these guys fighting for those championship positions, well, they desperately have to hold on to try and get whatever they can here. This is a race of recovery.
Our production truck is telling us to go to commercial, but we're not. As instead, we're going to have a bit of a moment, and we're going to work ourselves a lap on board with the Tequila Patron car of Andreas Warner as we sit and bumble and talk absolute nonsense. So, hi Cam, how are you?
I'm doing good, but Andreas Werner just went into the pit, so you better come back with the commentary. As he does loop it around that large carousel. This is a very interesting pit lane, Sonoma. Can always catch people out. Did see a couple of people wreck their cars entering pit lane. Andreas Werner, they're on the pit lane limiter, 44 miles an hour. He's going to take that wide, long left-hand turn, and he will make a way. This is actually probably one of the longest deltas you have in racetracks here, but he'll pull into that second pit stall, and he will get his service underway. Brand new tires, full of fuel, and he will hopefully get back underway. But with Andreas Werner come in, Eric Davis and Brendan Lichtenberg, though, will have to definitely make their ways fairly quick, as you want to answer right as soon as the leader answers.
Yeah, Brian Karzeski making himself a pit stop. He's actually very slow onto pit road. Just having a look there, he's made himself a 139.8 lap time. I think he might have actually been close to being out of fuel. He does come back out onto the racetrack. 9.5 second stop for him. As you can see on your screen, it was a 9-second stop for Andreas Warner. As Tim Miller is also now onto pit road in that number 91 car, making himself that first pit stop for him of the day. We expect Eric Davis, Brendan Lichtenberg onto pit road in the next lap or so. As you can see, 8.6 second stop there from Tim Miller as he comes back out onto the racetrack. Eric Davis then working himself from the exit of the chicane down towards that final corner. And we know if he's going to go straight on, he is going to go straight on, Rachel. He is onto pit road.
He is indeed, well, and something these guys will have to take special attention for is being such a long pit road, and also being the first road course these guys have run in quite a while. They could well fall foul of race control's 2 pit box in, 2 pit box out penalty system. If they come in too soon, which here, let's be honest, it's very tempting to do so, they could see themselves getting a drive-through penalty, Will.
Yeah, as you can see then, Eric Davis working himself onto pit road. You have also got yourself Joe Branch. There you can see, and also John Pausette coming on towards pit road right about now as Joe Branch. You can see him making his first journey onto pit road for the day in that number 28 car. And for Eric Davis, he is going to be back out and away in a pit stop time of 8.5 seconds. Joe Branch then making himself his first pit stop of the day. As you can see him just revving the engine now in that number 28 car, getting set to go back out onto the racetrack. 9.1 seconds back out and away as John Pausette comes to a stop now in that Banshee Autosport number 27 car. He's going to get himself a couple of fresh tyres. He'll top up with fuel and he'll be good to go for about another 20 laps. 10 seconds on the dot back onto the racetrack. He will come. One driver who has not yet pitted is that one of Brendan Lichtenberg working himself on the back end of the racetrack once again. Aaron, he should be in this time.
He should, and Werner just had a moment in the hairpin. He had just completed a pass on Rob Ungelnieks, ran wide, and got off the racing surface. Very fortunate not to do some wing damage there on the transition. So I was taking a look at that. Almost threw away the race right there.
Yeah, as they can see, Andreas Warner pushing very wide.
We've another incident. Well, Rob Ungelnieks coming into the pits, cuts across as Werner turns into the final turn, and my goodness, Werner's race was just about ran right there. Oh my.
Let's get ourselves another look at then from Andreas Warner as he comes down into the final corner. By the way, Lichtenberg has just come onto pit road, and there you can see, very last second, Ungelnieks onto pit road. We get ourselves another look at that one on board with Andreas Warner trying to figure out just how close it was. And it was mighty close. So this is Andreas Warner working himself through the chicane. We cycle that camera around, and this will give us a very good understanding of this actually, because of the fact you'll notice that Ungelnieks at that point in time was pretty far back as down into that final corner. We just actually lost that replay, so we're going to have to show it to you all over again. Brought to you by Aflac. As you can see then, Andreas Warner working himself down into that chicane. As, well, I do have to say, actually, Aaron, it was mighty, mighty close.
That is a heads-up driver there by Werner. He checked his mirror and turned in, and if he would have taken his normal line, he would have made a collision. And Ungelnieks as well turned the car hard right to avoid, which this is a very awkward pit entry. As cars are slowing down, you stay on the throttle flat out to go straight. So a very awkward pit entry, and for Werner, two very close calls in one lap, so by no stretch of the imagination is a win ever guaranteed in the 16th Street League.
Yeah, and you can see that a wild Rob Ungelnieks appeared. However, Andreas Warner does continue his journey on the racetrack, and he is currently 6.1 seconds ahead of Eric Davis as he works himself on the back end of the racetrack. To give you confirmation, by the way, I say Lichtenberg did pit, and he did himself a 9.1 second pit stop there. He still runs in that fourth place. Yes, however, been able to eke out a bit of an advantage over Joe Branch by going a little bit longer in that last run. We've got Christopher Block on pit road. It looks like it's a very long pit stop for him. And Dave Jinks, as well, he's unfortunate today. You can see no front end on the front of his race car. He is still on pit road. His service is now up to 5 minutes. And Christopher Block is out of the car. It looks as though he will be taking no further part in today's event. There you can see then Andreas Warner working himself down into the chicane. And once again, Cam, the guys in the truck are telling us it's commercial, but we're going to just sit here and talk absolute nonsense. Brought to you by Aflac.
Oh, well, Lichtenberg, sorry, Lichtenberg in the carousel went off and made contact with the end of the tire wall.
Let's get ourselves another look at that one then from Brendan Lichtenberg as he works himself down into turn number 7. As you can see, pushing himself a little bit wide, and well, Brendan Lichtenberg, it's not been his day at all here, has it been, Aaron?
Not at all, but I don't know, he might have got away with it. He is still running somehow. I guess he did hit the near end of it flush, so doesn't look to be that much damage. And as we say on the ovals, if you hit it square, you can get away with it, and I think he got away with one right there. He did lose a position to Joe Branch, but other than that, he is still somehow in this race.
Yeah, and there you can see Brendan Lichtenberg struggling here today in the 16th Street Racing League. Andreas Warner, however, is still classified as your race leader, and that gap is now up to 7.7 seconds, Rachel, between himself and Eric Davis.
It is, certainly, and well, other than having to potentially stop for new underwear in that race car, well, Andreas Werner's lost his main competition in this race, Michel de Jong, so he has, to an extent, now got the ability to run a race of conservation. He just needs to look after his tyres, look after his car, not make any silly mistakes or get caught in silly mistakes. Of course, he will start lapping traffic soon. He just has to hold on, and he could take this one to victory lane. As we said though, it's Sonoma. They're thinking outside the oval, but it's not guaranteed.
Yep, As you can see down in your pack, there is Brendan Lichtenberg still battling with Joe Branch. Gap between those drivers is 1.4 seconds. And let's not forget, Cam, a little bit earlier on, Branch was catching Brendan Lichtenberg. So it does look as though that this is one that is going to be hard, potentially, for Lichtenberg to get back.
It is, and it's very unfortunate for Lichtenberg there, but he is going to be trying as hard as he possibly can. I've been watching Lichtenberg in his progressions throughout this race. He is definitely trying to find the limits. He's taken turn 7, that very tight carousel there where we had that incident between our race leaders. A couple of times now he's actually clipped that curbing to where all 4 tires of his race car leave the surface of the earth, which in the IndyCar, it's not necessarily what you want to do. But you know what? He's been trying to get that lap time down, and ultimately, though, he's going to have to start improving his lines fairly quick. Maybe some time behind Joe Branch. You can take in those lines and get that car back up to speed.
Yeah, Joe Branch is actually your biggest mover in today's event, up 3 positions, and there you can see the graphic on your screen. At one point he was down as low as P number 7, now up in that 4th position. The gap between himself and Lichtenberg just hovering at about 1 second right now. So we're going to step aside for just one moment. It's okay though, we will show you side-by-side coverage where we guarantee the screen will be bigger than about 4 pixels.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to RaceSpotTV. Andreas Warner is still leading the way as we're past halfway, so that means it's time for your half race break, as we need to remind you, about everything that's happened so far in today's broadcast. Now, Andreas Warner started alongside Mitchell de Jong at the start of this race. However, on lap number 2, made himself a little bit of a spinneroonie, Rachel, getting himself involved in an incident with de Jong, which eventually cost de Jong the race. Andreas Warner, however, was able to carry on. He's now 13.8 seconds ahead of Eric Davis.
Yes, indeed, and yeah, not as much a spin there for Andreas Werner, but he definitely had to kind of keep the steering wheel turning to stop the car from doing exactly that. It's been a tough race, and well, I think there is barely a car, if any, that hasn't at some point had a bit of a spin here, Will. It's hard to really kind of translate this to the viewers, but this is possibly one of the hardest tracks for this car. There are many elevation changes, camber changes, the corners are slow, but they have long straightaways, so you have to get the power down, and wow, this car does like to spin those rear wheels.
Of course, our other big story of the day, Aaron, is that one of Brendan Lichtenberg. He is fighting to keep a championship dream alive. He's down in P5. He is already half a minute behind your race leader, and it looks so that championship has slipped away from him. And let's not forget, though, he is not a bad driver on road courses. We learned this one last year. It just seems to be that he hasn't got that raw speed that he needs when it counts for it.
Indeed, I agree with that assessment 100%. And, well, ever since he did nick the tire wall and Joe Branch has gone around him, his speeds have picked up. When he was running by himself, he was running 1 minute 20.5s. He is now in the 1 minute 19 bracket, so I don't know if he's learned something by following Joe Branch, but he has picked up the wick just a little bit, and the battle for fourth rages on. Joe Branch seems to get off the corners a little bit better, but through the hairpins, Brendan Lichtenberg is really stout, so maybe they just didn't find the balance of the car here today. He's good in some segments, but to be fast here, you have to find the balance where it works everywhere.
And so far, Cam, we've had ourselves 3 different leaders. Andreas Warner has led himself 4 different leaders, actually. Andreas Warner has led 21 laps, Eric Davis 5. Brendan Lichtenberg and Michael de Jong have led 1 lap apiece.
Yeah, and while it's been expected for Andreas Warner and Michael de Jong to be leading, it's that early incident there, and of course pit stop meanderings have given other drivers the opportunity to lead. But now, pit stop strategy, it's one of those things we don't really necessarily get to see a lot of pit stop strategy on road courses. This is a 52-lap race, so it should, though, work out in Andreas Warner's favor. Granted, something terrible doesn't happen, like a lapped car incident or an incident of his own making, as Terry Mathiasen, the car directly in front of him as Andreas Werner is going to be cresting turn 2, coming up right behind Terry Mathiasen. He had an off, but he'll come back on track, no problem there. But that's the thing that Andreas has to work out for right now. Watch out for the surprise young links that go around him to go into pit lane, and hopefully everyone plays nicely for him. But yeah, it's been sort of eventful up front, even though the speeds have really told us that it shouldn't be.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget the final round of the 2014-15 16 Street Racing League will be from Auto Club Speedway. That will be next Sunday here on RaceSpotTV as we close out the season, Aaron, at the final of our Triple Crown events. And of course, we haven't had a Triple Crown sweep again this year, but it might be a chance for Tim Holgate to potentially crown his championship going out with a bang.
Yes, and that would be what a marquee, what a stellar year Holgate has had. He's been solid pretty much everywhere, and on the ovals, the thing about Holgate's style that I like is he very rarely will put his car in a position that will jeopardize his car or another car. I think back to Pocono where he and Brandon Trust, I don't know how many miles they went side by side, but for anybody that...
Warner's been wrecked! This is down on the exit of turn number 2. Andreas Warner, a lapped car involved. I do believe that was Terry Mathiasen. And Terry Mathiasen. Andreas Warner just spun around as we were right on board with him. Get ourselves a replay of that. We were just showing you a graphic, by the way, of our fastest speeds of the race so far. Fastest lap times by drivers. but Andreas Warner, who was working himself up the hill, Terry Tinton was ahead of him on the racetrack. Now Warner has still going. He's still at himself a 5.2 second advantage over Eric Davis, but that gap is coming down dramatically. Andreas Warner is damaged. It looks as though he's going to be out of the race. Tinton just sliding it down the exit of turn 2. There we can see, and Andreas Warner looping it around. He has just lost himself that race lead now to Eric Davis, but a big moment, Aaron, for Andreas Warner.
What a cursed race, I guess you could say. It did start with the wheel spin and taking out De Jong, but then he ran wide in the hairpin. Then later that lap, Ungelnieks going into the pits just about took him out. This is a race Werner's just going to want to forget. You can only avoid so many shots as he's going to go straight through the chicane here. Sorry, so he's going to get out of the car, race over, and as we said, in the 16th Street League, nothing is ever guaranteed until that final checkered, and it's such a tricky track. It didn't take much, and unfortunately, a dominating performance now gets relinquished to Eric Davis being the race leader.
Yeah, and what we'll just show you here, ladies and gentlemen, just have a look at the steering wheel. There we are for Andreas Warner. You can see just how bad it was, Rachel, and there's no way he's going to be able to drive that car. You can see he's turned that wheel all the way to the left, and there's no way he can make the left-handers, yet he's steering that car to the left just to point it in a straight direction.
Yeah, that's terrible news there for Andreas Werner. Of course, with Mitchell de Jong out of the race, he had definitely a real shot there at taking this victory. Of course, no real competition in terms of outright speed other than Eric Davis, but that's just so unfortunate, Will. Of course, Mathinson not necessarily entirely to blame. He got off the track there, and as he tried to re-enter, saw Werner coming, tried to check it, but the car looped a second time, and just wrong place, wrong time. That's definitely going to be upsetting there for Werner, but one person on this track that will be liking that is Brendan Lichtenberg, who's now in P4 aggregate. He's actually on the back now of Joe Branch.
Yeah, let's get ourselves then another look from Terry Tinton's point of view of what happened to him. You can see actually he was having to use quite a lot of steering luck as he worked himself out of the final corner. Now down and towards turn number 1, of course there's an uphill crest. Now, I'll be interested to see whether or not he caught a white line, a yellow line as it is here at Sonoma. Next to note, he just looped that car around. You see, he slowed it down onto that dirty gravel, and there you can see just making contact at the very last moment with that driver of Andreas Warner. But Matinton is out of the race. Battle is still going on between Joe Branch and Brendan Lichtenberg, and it is just 0.3 of a second separating those drivers to work themselves up the hill once again, Aaron.
Yes, Joe Branch has really slowed up. He's now running 120.8. His car is a second faster, so I don't know if that is just from tire fall off or if he's having to run a little bit more defensive line. Last time through this section, Brendan Lichtenberg stuck his nose to the inside from way behind. Joe Branch had to shut the door, so when you start driving in the mirror, when you start knowing that that car is behind you, you may not deviate your line that much, but you can slow down because you may miss your marks just a little bit as you think, okay, what's that driver going to do behind me? And when you start thinking about what other people are doing and not what you're doing, you can very easily make an unforced error.
Yeah, as you can see, then we have a look at Joe Branch in that third position. Just behind him is Brendan Lichtenberg, still just 0.6 of a second back. Second round of pit stops, though, Rachel, is still to come, so there's still plenty of action to go. And if you're Lichtenberg, you need to remember the fact that you went longer than Branch on that first stint, although that could very easily play into his favour. If he can just be a second quicker on the pit stop gun, he can be back ahead of Joe Branch.
He can indeed, and if he's just a little bit quicker at the moment on track, as he seems to be, he could eke that out anyway on the actual racetrack, and that's an extra position and a podium finish there Brandon Lichtenberg desperately wants if he wants to keep that title charge alive. Lichtenberg, though, definitely worrying Branch. If I was Branch, I'd be into the pits pretty soon, get those fresh tyres and make a difference on fresh rubber. But Lichtenberg, he's good at the end of this run, and that's got to be a factor at the end of this race.
Yep, and of course, for Lichtenberg, he needs to hope that he can find a way of getting a W. He doesn't get any bonus points for being pole position here today, so he will need to ensure that he gets himself a win just to keep that championship hope alive. A second place won't do it for him here, and it looks as though, for all intents and purposes, Tim Holgate could very easily not even be in Sonoma, but be crowned as your champion, Aaron.
Yeah, and I guess that will prevent a champions interview this evening. But for Lichtenberg, if you remember his interview last week, he talked about how he wasn't really thinking about the championship. In his mind, he was thinking about keeping that second place. So for Lichtenberg, really, we're the only ones that kept the championship talks alive. Last week he was saying, yeah, the championship's probably not going to happen. Time to focus on solidifying second. And this battle for Joe Branch, I think, does have ramifications in that field.
Yeah, and it is interesting to note, actually, the fact that, of course, Eric Davis is scored 3rd place in the championship coming into this event, as Lichtenberg now all over the rear of Joe Branch. They work themselves down the hill once again. And it is interesting to note, Aaron, the fact that Eric Davis is leading this race. If they were to finish this race now, and I am doing the math on the fly, if Lichtenberg gets himself a podium finish, then they are pretty much going to be equal on points heading to Auto Club, and it will be a case of whoever finishes above the other one will walk away with 2nd place in the title.
And when you're running for points and you put it in, when you invest the time, you may say, okay, well, to quote a movie, if you're not first, you're last. But if you've ran the entire season, you don't want to lose a position, especially in the top 5 of a points championship, by 1 point. So that is going to be a very interesting dynamic next week on how that plays out. So for Lichtenberg, this battle with Joe Branch is a little bit more critical because Lichtenberg now cannot afford a mistake. We don't have that many cars running, about 8 cars it looks like running, so losing 4 spots, but those 4 spots as Joe Branch slips a little bit, Lichtenberg right up the rear wing, but don't know if he's going to be able to get a run, but this battle for 3rd could prove to be who gets 2nd overall.
Yep, John Porzik on the Team Crumpet strategy, 7.6 second stop for him as he makes his 2nd pit stop of the day. There you can see Joe Branch is still ahead of Lichtenberg, but those tyres are giving off. And of course, one thing to remember, Cam, in this event is there are uses of the push to pass. Now, if Lichtenberg's been rather savvy about it, he's already saved as many of them as he can for this final run to the flag, just in case he comes out behind Joe Branch still.
Yes, I mean, these pit stops are going to be very vital to see who gets out ahead of who. Brendan Lichtenberg has been absolutely rocking it right behind Joe Branch. Now, you can learn other people's lines, and you can just break that 1/10 of a second later in every single corner. And over the course of a whole lap, that adds up. That closes up that gap. So Brendan Lichtenberg obviously having closed up right now. They're running within the same second. It's just a matter of finding out when, and I'm almost wondering who's using more tires, Brendan Lichtenberg or Joe Branch. So we'll have to see when these from Eric Davis and Brian Karzewski. We have a very different picture here, Will.
Yeah, Tim Miller is onto pit road to make his 2nd stop of the day. Now, we are supposed to go to commercial break. However, instead, what we're going to do is talk to a driver not even in the race. Hi, Brandon Traino. How are you?
What's going on, Will Vincent? How are you?
I'm not too bad. Well, your teammate is currently scored just outside of a podium position. Of course, he won't be able to win the championship if he finishes where he is, but still a good showing by your boy, Brendan.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell him to push the car a little bit harder, but he's being a little baby over there, not even pushing the gas. So, yeah, he's had a really good season, so P3 is also good, so.
Yeah, as you can see, Eric Davis is still leading the way, and there you can see, as we have a look from our aerial coverage powered by And1 Design, there is the gap between Joe Branch and Brendan Lichtenberg, still at 7/10 of a second. Both those drivers will stay out and do another lap as Brian Karzewski coming on towards pit road this time by. But, well, to think forward, as far as that battle goes to Auto Club Speedway with your team compared to Banshee Autosport, Brandon, we know that you guys are very good at Auto Club Speedway. It looks as though it's going to be a straight horse fight. Whoever's fastest between yourself, between Lichtenberg and Davis will get that 2nd spot. How do you think it'll all fare out?
I think it's going to be a really interesting race. I mean, Holgate, I think, pretty much has the championship locked up, but I'm going to try to help Brendan out, see if we can find some raw speed, and see if we can get him P2 in the championship.
Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Instead of taking a commercial break, we're talking to Brandon Traino here on RaceSpotTV as Lichtenberg and Branch working themselves on the racetrack. Currently P2 and 3 as we're cycling ourselves through another round of pit stops. There you can see Eric Davis working himself down towards the final corner, and he's onto pit road, Rachel.
He is indeed coming down for a final service wheel. 4,000 racing fuel, hopefully getting himself back on that fresh rubber he needs to try and push this win. He has suddenly found himself in the frame for, again, being quite defensive in what I say there, because as we've seen so far, it's not certain. Eric Davis, he's heading down now to that pit box, one of the longest pit roads, probably after Road America, and certainly the most difficult to get onto, possibly after Laguna Seca, but he's into that pit box wheel, he's getting a service, not falling foul of that ruling there on box entry, he's getting his service done, and he will be down and away.
7.8 seconds then for Eric Davis as he comes back out onto the racetrack. As he comes back, as you can see, 7.8 second stop for him. And keeping an eye out then, Brendan Lichtenberg is currently your leader. As you can see, Joe Branch is onto pit road, Aaron.
Yeah, Joe Branch came in. Lichtenberg is really pushing it. He's been off the track twice this lap. I don't think it slowed him down that much, but Lichtenberg is really pushing on this lap because this is his best chance to get around Joe Branch. We haven't mentioned it, but passing here, very, very, very difficult. Best way to make a pass is when your opponent makes a pit stop, go faster than him. And Lichtenberg right now is really pushing on this lap, and I think he went 2 laps longer last time. Yes, there is tire fall off, but at the same time, you are much lighter on fuel. So for Lichtenberg, these next 2 laps could play out to see just where he is in the points as we go into next week at Auto Club.
Yeah, and of course, Lichtenberg, he came in, I think, at the end of lap number 20. So you see, he will do another lap as he works himself then out of the final corner. So it's lap number 20 first time around. It will be lap number 40 second time around for Brendan Lichtenberg as he does himself a 1:21 flat there. As you've now got yourself Rob Ungerlinks getting himself onto pit road. So you can see Ungerlinks, he's not on pit road even. He's down in P number 5 on the racetrack. He's made himself 1 pit stop, yet to make his second one. But to compare, actually, Ungerlinks' time to that one of Lichtenberg. Now, Ungerlinks was half a second slower that last time by. Just trying to find some method of comparison because a lot of drivers are on out laps at the moment. But I have to say, Cam, it was a bit of a scruffy lap there, time-wise, as well as also by the way he was handling the corners for Brendan Lichtenberg.
Yeah, sometimes when you, the worst thing you can do is try and push the car. You can push the car just by sort of saying, okay, this is that lap I'm pushing. It's another thing to try and force the car to go fast. If you try and force a car to go fast, you're just going to ruin yourself and potentially ruin your race, which is very easy here to do at Sonoma, as we've seen already. But no, Brendan Lichtenberg, though, he's kind of put that car up over those curbs quite frequently. He might be going into the pits this time by. He's just about to complete his lap number 40, and he will. Now, this pit entry, very important, getting right on the throttle there. He takes the corners at 50s. He gets down from 75. He starts taking the corner down to 50. So that was a very aggressive intake, which can be very disastrous as well, that outside wall. Not forgiving, but Eric Davis will go by the leader on the right side there on the track, but he'll track it in, and we'll see how long Brendan Lichtenberg can go and if he will get out ahead of Joe Branch.
Yeah, there you can see 9.1 second stop last time by for Lichtenberg, on to make his second stop then, as it's going to be a pit stop time of 6.9 seconds, incredibly quick. Back out and away. We keep an eye out then to see, can he get out ahead of Joe Branch? The answer to that question is no. Branch is still ahead, and now, Aaron, what you have to do is what I mentioned a little bit earlier on. Plan B. Do you have enough push to pass it to go as Terry Mattinson goes back off the racetrack?
Not the Dave Mattinson wanted at all. Same spot that we saw him off earlier. So it's turn 2, giving him all sorts of trauma as Lichtenberg goes off the racetrack. No wall contact, but that he is nowhere within striking distance now of Joe Branch. So the battle for third is going to be, well, it might take a while for Brendan Lichtenberg to get back up there, and this is where you can't get frustrated. As a driver, I mention this so often, you can make one mistake, and once you make that one mistake, it is so easy to make a second mistake, and so often that second mistake is much, much more major than the first one.
Yep. getting ourselves a couple of replays, and we'll start off by having a look at Terry Martinson making himself a second major off at turn number 2. So you can see just ahead, by the way, Brendan Lichtenberg coming out onto the racetrack once again. Terry Martinson through turn number 1, just looping that car around on the exit of the corner, getting himself back onto that dirty gravel area. As then we see Brendan Lichtenberg, he goes off there down at turn 3B, which causes him to lose, and goes off again actually at turn number 4, which then causes him to be now 4.5 seconds behind Joe Bryant. In a couple of moments time, we'll have a word with Andreas Warner. In the meanwhile, we're going to step aside for just one moment as we take you side by side. The 16th Street Racing League on RaceSpotTV is brought to you by And One Designs, official graphics partner of the 16th Street Racing League. Also brought to you in part by International Light Technologies, official partner of the 16th Street Racing League. And finally, by iRaceForLife.org, presenting partner of the 16th Street Racing League, Triple Crown. As we welcome you back, ladies and gentlemen, to Sonoma Raceway, as Brendan Lichtenberg still scored in that 4th position. Eric Davis is your new race leader, but Andreas Warner is currently, well, he's just finally calmed himself down a little bit. He'll be classified in 10th place overall. Andy, it has been an incredibly crazy race. All started on lap 2, of course, an incident with yourself and De Jong. It came to a head. Terry Martinson, exit of turn 2. Just getting himself back onto the racetrack, clipping the rear of your car, ending your race.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say big sorry to Michael. He was throughout the whole week, I would say, the fastest guy. At all testing sessions, he was dominating, and if this didn't happen, I would say he would have dominated this race, and yeah, that's why I attacked him in the first lap, because for me it was my only chance to kind of yeah, be competitive, and yeah, unfortunately it didn't come to a good ending for him. I think his race was his race was over after that. For me, I only had little damage, and yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, that was totally my fault. I just spun and crashed into him and ended his race.
And of course, the second big incident of the day was the one with yourself and Terry Martinson. Take us through what happened in those 5 seconds when you saw Martinson going off the racetrack to him coming back on and just clipping that right rear.
Well, when I drove uphill, I mean, it's very steep, and then you go into turn. I don't know. Is it called turn 2, the right-hander?
Yes.
Or turn 1? Okay. I saw someone going off into the gravel, and I thought, well, okay, as long as he goes off, it's okay for me, so I can go through. But I very late, I noticed, oh shit, he's coming back. He's coming back, and maybe I get it, and like, oh no, I don't get it, and that was it. But I was also a little bit confused about what happened after my first pit stop. I don't know if you recorded it. It was I almost had a collision with another car.
Yeah.
Who went straight into the pit.
Got it.
And I'm not pretty sure what his intention was actually. I don't know, but I mean, I got almost wrecked in that lap, so yeah, hard to say what my feelings are for this race. I mean, would have been cool to get my first league win, because I also had so much bad luck throughout the whole season, and would have been cool to get a win, not in this style. I mean, I don't want to wreck anyone, I don't want to ruin anyone's races, especially not guys who are faster than me and should have actually won this one, but yeah, hard to say what I should think about this whole race.
Just very quickly, we're showing a replay. Randy Krosno having himself an incident, as I believe this is on the exit of turn number 4, looping that car around onto the inside, having to let traffic to go past him. But of course, one more round of the 16th Street Racing League to go, Andy. That'll be at Auto Club Speedway in 1 week's time. And then, of course, it's time to get yourself ready for the summer and the ISWC IndyCar Series.
ISWC? What is this? I've never heard of that.
Nah, it's you know, the worst league ever, I've heard. But before that, again, you have got Auto Club Speedway. Is there a chance you're going to run?
Sure, I mean, it's an oval. Everybody knows me for being the absolute best driver on almost every oval in iRacing, so if I'm not going to win this one, I don't know.
Andreas Warner, ladies and gentlemen, as we are down with about 5.5 laps left to go here on RaceSpotTV. There's a gap between Eric Davis and Brian Karzeski, 11.8 seconds. As far as that battle between Joe Branch and Lichtenberg's gone, it's now the gap is up to 6 seconds. I think Lichtenberg is giving up the ghost.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of those things where you have to kind of consign yourself to what's going out on the track. I mean, this is difficult right now. Joe Branch, after Brennan has got that off, Joe Branch is kind of really taken off, and that can be because you don't have a car pressuring you from behind. You can go and take your own turns. And now Joe Branch, who we've known for a while to be the faster of these two cars, isn't giving that line assistance to Brendan. And that 7-second gap is quite monumental. I mean, especially when you see we have just a few laps to go. We only have 4 laps to go here. I believe 52-lap race, around lap 47. So the laps are quickly kicking down, and I think this is one of those things where you just have to settle for what you got.
Yeah, so Tim Holgate is essentially 4 laps away from winning the championship without even being here. But for Eric Davis, great performance by him here today. Just being able to keep around and away from all of the melees that have been going on. Good job, of course, on that number 65 car. What it does do is it means that he will be ahead of Lichtenberg heading into the final round. It will be winner takes all for P2 in the championship.
And that will be a very intense battle to watch next week. And for Eric Davis, anytime you can win in this series, it is big. He came just a few laps short at Iowa with that intense duel with Joe Branch. So Eric Davis, these next 3.5 laps are going to be very, very long. This is Sonoma. Anything can happen. Easy to light up the tires. He has a sizable lead, 12 seconds. No reason to push it. No reason to put his car into any danger. It's about 30 seconds to any more lap traffic. So these next 3 laps, very, very long.
Well then, let's ride along board one of those laps next time by with Eric Davis. As you can see, Brian Karzeski still running himself in second place. And Rachel, that will be his best finish of the year.
It certainly will, and it's not one to take lightly, of course. as we say, he has inherited this from some other drivers, but well, even they had the opportunity to finish and didn't. So Brian Kozlowski definitely earning himself some well-earned points if he, as we mentioned, can actually complete this race. Of course, on lap 49 at this point, so only 3 remaining, but they can be the longest 3 of your life when you're in such a good points position.
And what that will actually do is it will move him a little bit closer to the rear of Rob Unglings in the battle for P7 in the racetrack. Now, there are, of course, top 25 drivers will be locked in to the first couple of rounds for next season. We'll talk about that one potentially at the end of this broadcast. But here you can see then Eric Davis working himself down towards the final part of the racetrack. It is that hairpin. Let's ride a lap on board with that driver of Eric Davis as we talk absolute nonsense, Cam.
I'm just sitting here with my fine cat, Leonardo here. He has been sitting up in front of the monitor multiple times throughout this event, which I've had to shove him out of the way rather angrily, as he has just been trying to get some sleep during this race, which is very unfortunate. I've actually had a good time watching this race here at Sonoma, but I mean, this is one of those things, as we are watching on board with Eric Davis, that very bold blue and yellow car. I don't understand, though, in the commentary here, everyone seems to hate Sauber F1's teams. Oh, okay, Kitty, I'll pet you in the... Oh, he bits me. That blue and yellow that Sauber F1 car is having, I personally liked it. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, blue and yellow go very good together, I think. And so as we see Eric Davis coming up to that chicane, though, he is just doing a good job. No real issues there with Eric Davis taking the chicane. He'll have no problems going in through this this sort of hybrid final corner. Now, these Indy cars, they used to take the full corner, the NASCAR corner, as you would call it. It was just making too many incidents. And
we thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the lap on board with Eric Davis.
Lap of nonsense.
Brought to you by Aflac.
Brought to you by Cam. So, 11 seconds the gap between him and Brian Kozlowski, who we haven't really talked about, and he's actually done a really good job today.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's not our fault that we've had to endure NASCAR. Sorry, it's not even called NASCAR and Fox anymore. Fox NASCAR, as we have to call it. Even though Chris Myers got it wrong in the Hollywood Hotel, even though they're not in Hollywood, they're on the complete opposite side of the country when they're in Daytona. But we won't talk about that one, Aaron.
No, we won't, and I think it was Jeff Hammond who gave him the name Hollywood Hotel, and he's not on the broadcast anymore. But mentioned Brian Kozlowski. I guess this race, it's been a good thing that we haven't mentioned name. Most of the names we have mentioned, it's been, oh, he's off, oh, he spun, oh, he got clipped. So perhaps for Brian Kozlowski, it's good that his name has not come up, as Eric Davis now going to be about 2 turns away from the white flag.
Yeah, here you can see then Eric Davis working himself down towards the final corner, and ladies and gentlemen, this time by the white flag is in hand for the last road course race of the season. This is the final lap of the final road course race as he works himself down in toward turn number 1 and 2 for the final time, and well, Davis has himself an 11.2 second advantage right now over Brian Kozlowski, last time by a 121.042 compared to a 120.909 last time by for Brian Kozlowski. That battle that we talked about earlier on between Joe Branch and Brendan Lichtenberg, well, that one has really eked out. It's now 13.7 seconds a gap between those two drivers, as Lichtenberg's really turned the wick down at 123.156 that last time by. So as it stands, it means that there's not going to be a battle for the championship in the final round, but there will be a battle for P2 and P3 as Eric Davis will move ahead of Brendan Lichtenberg. Just half a lap now to go for Eric Davis. Don't worry, there won't be a caution in the next 25 seconds, but Eric Davis working himself down towards that chicane for the final time, getting himself a little bit loose actually there, clipping over a little bit of the sand, but he works himself down into that chicane for the final time. Eric Davis in that number 65 Banshee Auto Sport car now just has 2 corners to go, now just has 1 corner to go as we wrap up the road portion of the 2014-15 16th Street Racing League here on RaceSpotTV. Eric Davis goes to victory lane in the number 65 car, and it's a wonderful day for Canada and therefore the world as Brian Karzeski works himself out of the final corner. He will claim second place on number 56 car. Third place will go to Joe Branch. He works himself out of that final corner. You can see rear view shot there. Brendan Lichtenberg down in the fourth position as Joe Branch comes home in third. There you can see Brendan Lichtenberg working himself down into that final corner. He will claim fourth place. But as a result of that, ladies and gentlemen, your 2014-15 16th Street Racing League champion is officially Tim Holgate, Aaron.
Yep, and I was trying to mention it before the unfortunate issue with Werner, but what a great season by Holgate. Very solid on the ovals, very rarely put himself in a position to be taken out, gave drivers just enough room. He didn't give drivers the world when they were side by side, but gave just enough room, and what a fitting champion on what has been just an absolute stellar year. Right now for the DW12, I will say that he, as of right now, is the strongest driver. With the old car, you had the Tim Doyle, the Young O's, but right now with the new car, the proven name is Tim Holgate.
There you can see then your race winner here today. Tim Holgate is indeed the champion for 2014-15. Will we see the donuts by Eric Davis? I think we're about to find out. Here we are then. Donuts for Eric Davis in the infield car park drag strip part of the racetrack. They can see celebrating a victory in the 16th Street Racing League, which moves himself, Rachel, into P2 in the championship with just one more round to go at Auto Club Speedway.
It is indeed. Tim Holgate can either start and park, not show up, or just turn up and race with his heart on his sleeve. Well, he's certainly a well-deserving champion this year. Brendan Lichtenberg, of course, gotta say something about him. He's had a really hard charge, and he's done everything he could to try and gain the maximum points possible. But Holgate's just had him. So hopefully he can come back next season and repeat it and maybe take the championship. But gotta give Tim Holgate his moment in the sunlight.
Yep, as they can see, Brendan Lichtenberg bringing his car onto pit road, knowing that his championship charge is done. Ladies and gentlemen, let's run yourself through your final race results then, here from the beautiful Wine County Sonoma Raceway, as it is Eric Davis claiming victory by 10.8 seconds then over Brian Karzeski, Joe Branch in third, Brendan Lichtenberg in fourth, Tim Miller in fifth, John Paulzak in sixth, Rob Ungerling, Randy Cosno, Terry Martinson and Andreas Warner running out your top 10. Now your fastest lap of the day, that was set by Andreas Warner, 1 minute 17.892. As we show you there, the remaining drivers in your field here today, Christopher Block, Dave Jinks, Chuck Eisenberg and Mikel de Jong. We'll step aside for just one moment. We'll be back with post-race interviews after these messages. You are watching RaceSpot TV.
It's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Drivers, start your engines!
The final round of the Neo Endurance Series is coming your way in just a couple of weeks here on RaceSpotTV. We are your home for the biggest event in all of sim racing. And don't forget, the first round of the 2015 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series is this coming Saturday. Coverage will start at 1:30 p.m. GMT. Next Sunday, it will be the final round of the 16th Street Racing League, as well as announcing the schedule for the 2015 ISOWC IndyCar Series. In the interim, however, we're going to have ourselves a quick word with the driver who came home in the 4th place here today, Brendan Lichtenberg. You tried so hard, you got so far, but in the end, you only came 4th.
Well, I think it's the best we could have done today. Well, actually, I think third could have been the best we could have done, but I just had a brain fade moment in whatever turn it was, like the carousel. Yeah, go with that. I just missed the braking point and went wide and hit the tire barrier, which actually, right after that happened, I was running faster laps, so I need to do that more often.
Yeah, actually your teammate had an issue like that once, actually, in Indianapolis, where he hit the wall and it actually started going faster. But the actual start of the race, you tried to go 3 wide, you got yourself a little bit loose. How close was it to you hitting the wall? Did you hit the wall?
I didn't hit the wall, and I don't want to know how close it was, because honestly that was just really, really dumb move on my part, but I knew I had to be aggressive, and knew Eric was quick, and I thought that was going to be the only chance to get around him, and it pretty much was, unless he had a incident, but he drove clean race and won the race, so congrats to him. Looks like our battle P2 is going to go to Fontana.
Yeah, and of course, championship dream is done for this season, but Davis moves ahead of you in the points, but it's going to be winner takes all between the two of you. We know that your cars are good on the ovals. We do know, of course, as well, that you have struggled in the mid part of run sometime this season. Very good at the start, very good at the end. What do you need to do heading to Auto Club, and it's 14 degrees of banking, to make sure that you do secure that 2nd place in the championship?
I think you just need to stay calm, and I was definitely driving a little aggressive tonight. You know, it's going to be a 400-mile race, so you gotta. It's a long race. Anything can happen, so you just have to be there in the end. You have to finish, obviously, to get the points you want. So I'd be happy with the top 5 at Fontana, but I'd like to win the race most of all.
Brendan Lichtenberg coming home in the 4th place here today, and Aaron, we are set up for a great final round between Lichtenberg and Eric Davis. Davis will have the advantage, of course, getting himself bonus points by leading the most laps.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry, excuse me. Got most laps by only 3 tonight, so very close, and it'll be interesting to see if those just 3 laps led. This 2nd place battle could come down to 1 or 2 points, which at a 400-mile race, it's going to be very difficult for both drivers to, 1, be cautiously aggressive. They are not going to be able to fall back too far in the pack, and at the same time, they are going to have to finish. And with the Dirty Air Auto Club that we've seen, it can be very difficult off of turn 2, and just like Indy turn 1, by the time you realize you're in trouble, it is too late. So going to be a very exciting finish to this. Well, the champion's been crowned, but the rest is yet to be written.
Indeed, and of course, don't forget, that'll be here on RaceSpotTV next Sunday. In the interim, however, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a RaceSpotTV presentation of the 16th Street Racing League here on RaceSpotTV. A very big congratulations to Tim Holgate, who is your series champion for 2014-15. Myself, Will Vinton, from Rachel Whiteford, Cam Walsh and Aaron Likens. We shall talk to you next time. Bye-bye.